The 5-39 Pistons beat Oklahoma City by 16 at home yesterday.
Any given Sunday.
The city of Detroit surely is thrilled today. Under any other circumstance, Stugotz, except what happened yesterday, I tell you, Detroit's playing in that game, and they lose by 3 points, 34-31, and the city of Detroit is thrilled with the season that they had.
Mm-hmm.
Just delighted with an amazing season. But when you gag that game up the way they did, and you know how much I dislike that we've made sports about blaming people instead of crediting them, but in those games yesterday, the losers deserve the blame for being maximum losers. And I'm stunned that America, which is divided on everything, evidently today, a historic day, is in unison on we're all pro field goal. We've never loved field goals so much. Jess, are you going to be with me? Because I'm going to go the other way on this. I haven't heard much of anybody do anything except crush Dan Campbell for playing the way he has all season and, according to Next Gen Stats, doing the things that had the best probabilities, because this year, Stugotz, in plus territory, they went for it on 4th and 3 or shorter 20 of 24 times and converted 17 of the 20. They're good at that. Dan Campbell wants to scare you on offense, wants you to be backpedaling. You can't control that Reynolds is going to suddenly drop the ball.
There's a time and a place, Dan, and you have to go by feel of the game. You do. You just have to go. Occasionally, Dan, you have to go by the feel of the game. And at 24-10, they've scored a touchdown second half. You want to give your team a 3-score lead. And to not go for the field goal in that spot, to not go for the field goal later in the second half, that's a terrible job. I'm sorry, by Dan Campbell.
All right. So let me come at this another way, okay, because we can argue about this. And I don't have a ton of conviction about what I'm saying to you, but I'm going to set up the argument on the other side, because most people are going to say, well, go for it all the time. Nah, it's different going for it when you don't have behind the safeties to play with. You're close to the end zone. 4th and 3 from the 5-yard line, it's more difficult because you can't get beyond the safeties. When you play reward versus risk, going for it on 4th and 3, you want the option of a 60-yard touchdown because you want to be able to use the whole field. But what I would say to you about this that I think is being missed is the following. A lot of people, are presuming in these situations that the field goals are going to be made. First of all, at which point, if it gets missed, you're going to be the first one there. Campbell, you played that way all season. Why are you a coward in that spot? Because we have the results now. But the second one, I think, is just as interesting, because this part is something that, as I'm watching these games, I wonder why it's not taken into consideration. If Campbell kicks the field goal to tie, under what circumstance in that second half did you have them stopping San Francisco when San Francisco wanted to score? Under any circumstances, because all San Francisco did, like when we're sitting here talking about coaching decisions, why isn't anyone talking about the fact that at half, whatever the adjustments were, Detroit couldn't score anymore, and all San Francisco did was go up and down the field. The best unit I saw yesterday, Stugotz, of any kind, was the Detroit Lions offensive line in that first half. Over the last 4 weeks, San Francisco has allowed 5 yards a carry to running backs.
Right.
4 weeks, they allowed the ball to be run. What makes you think if Detroit had tied the game that San Francisco wouldn't have just kept scoring? They were doing it the entire second half. To me, the worst thing that happened in that game of any kind, Stugotz, was at the very end, and we love the last stuff. This part is super weird to me because I thought we always choose the last thing to question, not the things before that. Everyone's talking field goals, and the fact that they ran the ball on 3rd down and then had to use one of their timeouts and couldn't keep all 3 timeouts, that was the biggest coaching decision mistake in the entire game by Dan Campbell.
I understand, but the 2 field goals, Dan, one puts them up 3 scores. He did it at the end of the first half. The other one ties the game. It ties the game.
I don't think, especially if this is your take on things, you don't get to gloss over. He did it at the end of the first half.
Right.
So he gave you both versions of what you're supposed to do. He did go by feel. He was like, okay, I don't want to run the risk of them having the ball coming out to start the second half.
Correct.
And us just being up 14. Let me go by feel here. So he gave you both examples that you're asking for. And he saw where that got him, and he decided for a more aggressive tack the second time.
You could argue that backfired on him because you saw how quickly they made that 17-point lead disappear. You could almost argue he should have gone for it. You saw it. It paid off, and it hurt them in the second half.
And I understand that Wilkes made defensive adjustments, but it wasn't adjustments that turned that game around. It was luck because 3 consecutive drives from the Lions, this is how it went. Josh Reynolds drop. Pass was a little behind him, but it hit him in the hands. Gibbs fumble. Josh Reynolds drop. Niners got lucky, too.
No, wait,
Yes.
Mike, you're
Off
forgetting.
the helmet catch.
Well, and the
That
Purdy
one,
pass,
that
yes.
one.
That was the game.
Should have been
Like,
picked.
That
Yeah, but
was
I'm-
the game.
that-
That was insane.
That was an incredible play, and I understand that they picked the flag up afterwards. If Ayuk doesn't make that catch, maybe the flag stays down. So I understand that was a tremendous play, but I'm talking about they couldn't stop Detroit. And then they got 3 consecutive stops, and it wasn't because they were particularly awesome. It's because they got lucky.
Let's play some sound here from Dan Campbell. He's getting beat up, and he's saying, I know this is part of the gig. It's how it works. He's crushed, obviously, and Chris Cody has been fairly singing all morning around here. Everybody loves the aggressive coach until he's just a little too aggressive. Let's listen to Dan Campbell.
Sometimes you can only say so much. You got to live it, unfortunately. You got to get your heart ripped out, which we did. And it's a lesson learned. And look, I told those guys, this may have been our only shot. Do I think that? No. Do I believe that? No. However, I know how hard it is to get here. I'm well aware. And it's going to be twice as hard to get back to this point next year than it was this year. That's the reality. And if we don't have the same hunger and the same work, which is a whole nother thing, once we get the offseason, then we got no shot of getting back here. I don't care how much better we get or what we add or what we draft. It's irrelevant. It's going to be tough. Everybody in our division is going to be loaded back up, and, you're not hiding from anybody anymore. Everybody's going to want a piece of you, and which is fine, which is fine. But so it's hard. You want to make the most of every opportunity, and we had an opportunity, and we just couldn't close it out. It does. It stings. It stings.
That nose is red.
Why?
The reddest nose I've ever seen.
He's kind of right, too. It's not usually when someone makes their debut, it signals an era, especially if you look at the trajectory of season-over-season success that Dan Campbell's had there. But he's right. You look within their own division. The Packers look to be like a problem going forward. Mm-hmm. Caleb Williams is probably entering that division. Minnesota was hamstrung by a bunch of injuries this year.
That's still good.
It's not often that you find yourself conveniently, because of the way the Cowboys lose in the first round. There were a lot of things that broke their way this year, including a big lead in that game. It's hard to get back there, and Campbell actually had the right perspective.
There are a couple of things that I want to get to from that game, because San Francisco beat you even though Kittle did nothing, which I'm always stunned when Kittle does nothing.
He blocked.
Yeah.
He's like that, though. He's boomer bust, George Kittle. Like, it's weird. He has really good games and then just nothing burgers.
The sequence that Mike is talking about there, 4th down drop by Reynolds, dropped interception off of a face mask. I want you to understand how weird it is in one-on-one coverage to throw a football 50 yards downfield, hit someone in the face mask with it, and have it pop up in a way that's catchable. It's 50 yards.
In stride.
It's 50 yards. It's not a normal thing for the ball to pop up that way when you've thrown it 50 yards. Think about the way the ball is shaped and the way a face mask is shaped. And if I threw it 50 yards 50 times, do you think I'm getting that bounce to Ayuk? Again, one more time. Then you get the 3rd down drop by Reynolds, and I don't know that anyone feels worse than that dude today. Maybe Zay Flowers.
Definitely Zay Flowers.
I do feel bad about the 4th down discourse, because a lot of it is like, don't blame Dan Campbell, blame Josh Reynolds because he dropped an easy one, and it is a team loss. I feel bad for all of them.